Hello there and welcome. My name is Dwayne Huff, founder and creator of the Selling with Influence sales methodology. And in this video, what I'm going to do is I'm going to unpack that methodology going letter by letter in Influence. There's 9 letters, there's 9 steps in the Selling with Influence process. Now, if you enjoyed this and you find value in it, please consider joining me. I will be doing a live virtual half-day session and the investment's only $47. Totally refundable, 100% money back guarantee, no risk. I'll tell you more about that later. But without further ado, let me jump in to the Selling with Influence process. Now, if you're new to just meeting me and you haven't heard of me before, I carried a bag and sold out in the field for 14 years. And then I started my own company doing corporate sales training. And then I started another company doing influence training, which included presentation skills and negotiation and leadership. And then I started another company that came out of that called Business Success Partners, which is a business consultancy. I wrote a book called Write Your Own Ticket, How to Turn Your Passion into Profession and Do Work You Love on Your Own Terms. And then I created a course called How to Write Your Own Ticket in Sales, which ultimately lands on the Selling with Influence. So that's my background. I sold for 14 years. Then I started my own business, and every single day since I've been selling, just like you, whether you're a sales leader or you're a frontline individual. This is not just theory for me. I apply the stuff that we're going to talk about today, even to this day. So it's current, it's relevant, it's up to the minute, and I want to share it with you. But if you enjoy it, join me for that not full day class, half day class. I think I said half day class, or if I didn't, all the details will be down here after this, but consider joining me there in this. But without further ado, let me jump in. Here we go. Selling with Influence. So let's start with the letter I. It stands for I let go. And you should too. And what are we letting go of? Our agenda to sell something and the outcome of the sales call, of the meeting, of the next step in the process. We have to let go of the outcome and the agenda that we have, the agenda to sell something. Why? Because they feel that attachment and it creates sales resistance. So we have to let go of it. And I know that can be hard, but here's where I learned it. It's actually a funny story. I was working at Verizon Wireless selling cell phones, inside sales. And I'd been there for probably about 6 months, and I was having some success, but it wasn't extraordinary. I wasn't killing it by any means. I was at the top of the heap. Well, not the top, but close to the top of the heap, but I wasn't destroying it, right? And so they gave me a little bit of sales training, and my manager was amazing. He said, Dwayne, just be yourself, treat people like you want to be treated. It'll all work out. And it pretty much did up until that point, but I would get aggravated with people, because they'd ask the same questions. If you've ever dealt with the public before, the B2C say, it can get very frustrating. By the way, this also works in B2B, but I just happened to start there in B2C, right? And I was having difficulty controlling my attitude, being consistent, treating everybody fairly, because I was up one day, down the next. I was frustrated one day and happy the next, and sometimes things just annoyed me. Well, one day before I was about to show up for my shift, which started at 12 o'clock noon, I woke up early. I wasn't feeling well. I had a cold of some sort, and I knew I had to make it through my day. I couldn't afford to miss work, right? So I went to the local drugstore and I pick up a box of Dayquil. I'd had NyQuil before. It helped me sleep. I thought it was amazing, but I heard about this Dayquil thing. I'm like, maybe this will help me get through my day. So I go to the store, I get a pack. It was about 8:30 in the morning, and I take one. And I wait about 30 minutes. I'm not feeling any better, so I take another one. And then that didn't make me feel better. So just for good measure, I took another one about an hour later. And by the time I walked through the door to my job, I had had 4 Dayquil. And many days later, I read the package insert, which said you shouldn't have more than 4 in a day. And I'd popped 4 by 12 o'clock. So when I tell you I was feeling no pain, I had no care in the world. I was easygoing. I was okay, whatever happens. But in my mind, I'm like, I'm not going to do any heavy lifting today. I'm not going to do any work. I'm just going to chill. I'm just going to enjoy this vibe. And I found that when I got to work, I started answering calls and all the questions that used to come in. Hey, tell me about your specials. Hey, what do you got going on? Hey, this, that, or the other. And it would frustrate me. Not today. Not this day, man. I was like, yeah, sure. Let me tell you what's going on. And when the customers would come in the store, in my mind at that moment, because I really didn't want to do any heavy lifting, I found myself being completely quiet, being present with the client, asking questions, listening to what they said, not being in a hurry, definitely not attached to the outcome or my agenda to make the sale, because I didn't care. I mean, I honestly didn't care. And I think a combination of all those things, the asking questions, the being patient, the listening, the not trying to pitch and push and kind of persuade them to go in a certain direction. Somehow I stumbled across my sales voice that day. And I think that day I probably closed more business than I had the entire 6 months prior. And I definitely took that forward and ascended to the top of the sales team that we had in there. And so it was accidental. I stumbled across it, but it taught me you've got to let go of the outcome. You've got to forget your agenda to sell. You've got to listen. You've got to understand. You've got to ask relevant and meaningful questions that get the prospect to talk through things, the good, the bad, the ugly, the desire, the outcome, the pain they're trying to move away from, and just give them that space to think and to talk, and not only to you, but then they talk to themselves. And many times they'll work through it, and you don't have to do much heavy lifting. Now, since then, I mean, I've been through tons of great training, and I've worked across more than 300 companies as a trainer. So I've seen so many sales methodologies, and I've seen so many scenarios and situations, anywhere from small business to B2B sales to B2C sales to enterprise sales to channel sales. I've worked across all of them and trained across all of them. And what I see across the board is that this I let go of my agenda to sell something, and the outcome of this present call of the entire process creates a detachment that they can pick up on and feel. And you don't come across as needy. You have laid back posture. And when you lay back, they lean in because they don't feel like you need this. You're not too aggressive. You're not too hungry. And it keeps you from having to pitch and present and demo too soon. It's really about getting to understand and getting to know your prospect, no matter where it goes, so that you can better help them and serve them to get the end result that is best for them, right? And so that's the I let go, and you should too. Let go of the outcome, let go of the agenda. It will serve you. It will help you help them. And the trust level of just embracing that one thing goes through the roof. But let's move on to the next one, which is N, which is neutralizing sales resistance. And so letting go of your agenda and your outcome is definitely the first step in doing that. But being laid back, not in a hurry, not overexcited, enthusiastic. Think about all the things that raise sales resistance with you when they're a little too excited, when they're pitching, when they're presenting, when they're demoing, when they're trying to persuade, and they're trying to tell you everything they know about their product and service right up front and try to convince you. It makes you put up walls. So how do we neutralize that, right? Well, again, have that laid back posture. Don't be in a hurry. Be eager to listen and to understand and to get to know that person and their situation more readily. Be patient, be thoughtful, be concerned, be sincere, and have the intention that you're going to help them find and solve their problems. And that's your only goal. And when you're methodical and you ask great questions that get them thinking, that are easy to answer, that just help them to unpack in their mind what they've been dealing with, what's going to happen is their walls are going to go down. You're going to get them out of fight or flight mode. There's 3 parts of the brain. There's fight or flight, there's emotional, and there's cerebral. When you come at them as a salesperson, they're already conditioned to be in fight or flight mode. Your job is to reduce that resistance and get them out of fight or flight mode into emotional, because that's where people make their buying decisions, and they're able to be rational and think through going through that cerebral and the process with you, because now their guard is down. So you want to neutralize sales resistance. Again, I unpack this much further in that half-day live virtual workshop that I'm going to be doing. So please, if you want more and more specifics, what I'll be doing is I will be doing a little bit of teaching and training, unpacking this further answering questions and doing some coaching in the moment for the people that are there. But the second thing we got to do is neutralize the sales resistance. And the first way to do that is let go of the outcome and let go of your agenda. And then when you do this, the whole purpose of the sales conversation that you want to have is to facilitate a self-discovery process for your prospect, for your potential buyer. You want them to think through the good, the bad, the ugly, as I mentioned earlier, and think about what problems they're trying to solve and where there may be a gap and how they're going to ultimately resolve that, right? And many times people do not like to be told. People do not like to be told they have a problem or what they should do. But when they open up and they talk through it and they tell themselves and they have those epiphanies, they end up making the most important sale that needs to be made. It's them selling themselves that they have a problem or they have a goal and they want to make a change now. Change is hard. People do not like change unless for some reason in their mind, they're like, I want to change this. This is not good enough. This is not acceptable. This is a space. This is not where I want to be. And then they pull the trigger. See, when I was in phone sales at Verizon Wireless, in my mind, if they walked through the door, they weren't there because they had nothing better to do with their time. They wanted to buy something. And I soon learned that I just had to get out of the way and help them to talk through why they needed to change. And when that epiphany happened, the self-discovery activates probably the most compelling thing in any sales conversation. It's the self-motivation of the buyer. I'll give you an example. As a buyer, think about it as you, when you've been a buyer. I have a tiki bar out in my backyard. I've done some videos. I don't know if you've seen them, but I'm in the tiki bar. I'll do more of those. People tend to like that vibe. But anyway, so I'm out in my tiki bar, and I'd had some speakers that had been out there since we built the tiki bar, and they were good speakers, but then they started to short out, and the rain got to them and all that kind of stuff. So it was time to replace them, and only one of them was working, so it was getting kind of annoying. But it wasn't annoying enough to make a change because, having to remove them and go buy them and all that kind of stuff. Well, I'm sitting in the tiki bar one day and I'm not enjoying my music. It's hot outside. I'm miserable. But I get in the pool and I'm fine. But I'm like, you know what? Enough is enough. It's time for a change. I wonder if there's a better, I don't want to spend a lot of money, right? But is there a better system that would give me the same quality of sound and not be so cumbersome and difficult? Because every time I would go to move my speakers, I have bottles lined up on the tiki bar shelf and they would come crashing down. And that was not good, right? And so in that moment, my mind said, wait a minute, I need something better. And I wonder, because I'd seen them before, I have one in the living room actually, sound bars. I'm wondering if there's a sound bar that doesn't cost you much, but that would give a great sound. And I immediately walked into the house, went to Amazon, looked it up. And I think I found the soundbar I got, I think was a Sony. I think it's a Sony. I'd have to go out and check it. But it was Bluetooth. It was about, a little bit longer, right? And about almost 3 feet long, right? So it was like $80. I'm like, $80? I'd paid $100 for the two speakers I had in there. I said, let me order it because you can send them back if they don't work out. It's Prime. I'd get them the next day. So I got to click that urgency button, right, and get them soon. And sure enough, I got that speaker and plugged it up, and I think you have to seize them a little bit and get music playing through them, but now it's perfect. It works just as good as the ones I had before. And whenever the rain's coming, I can just unplug it, bring it in the house. It's portable. The other ones were not. But I activated the self-motivation and the self-discovery, because here's the bottom line of this whole thing. We all know this. Nobody likes to be sold, but everybody likes to buy stuff. They like to buy stuff. What's the difference? The difference is self-discovery and self-motivation. If it's their idea and they feel the need for change, they don't feel sold. And your job becomes not to pitch, not to present, not to push, not to coerce, not to do anything other than ask the questions that help them to identify where they are, where they should be, and why it's important to change. And when you do that and you facilitate that self-discovery and activate the self-motivation, they buy. And then when we're in that self-discovery, we need to start with learning where they currently are. What's good about it? What would they change about it? Why does it matter? What is it causing? You know, if they're trying to get away from something that's not comfortable or painful, you know, help them to talk through it and see what is it? How did it evolve? How did it get there? How long has it been going on? And what is that doing? Or if it's a goal that they want to reach that they haven't been able to reach yet, why specifically do you want that? You know, what would that look like when you get there? But you got to start with learning where they are currently, how they see it, what they've done to move away from it or move towards it, and how it developed in the first place. We got to start with that foundation. And we've got to come from an angle that it's not good or bad, it's just what it is. And asking them about their current situation is very non-threatening, non-evasive. It's easy. It's logical to unpack because they can just tell you the story or tell you the facts about how it happened. So they end up in that cerebral part of the brain, right? But whenever we've learned where they currently are, we need to understand in no uncertain terms and in full detail where they feel like they should and want to be, right? Because when we figure out where they are and understand where they want to be, and more importantly, they are really clear and they're facing where they are and when they want to be, that's when that gap starts to happen. And they start to see it and they start to feel it. If they're here and they want to be here, I heard one of my mentors years ago, her name was Wendy Lipton-Dibner. So Wendy, if you're out there, thank you for this. It's called inspirational discontent. They see where they are, they see where they could be, and all of a sudden something internal, it's not pressure, you're not putting pressure on them, it's a tension that you're activating, that they're activating. And all of a sudden it becomes more uncomfortable. Because let's face it, most people are day to day just trying to survive. They're not fully facing the problem. They're not really looking and striving for the solution. They're just getting by. But when you're facilitating this conversation with them through self-discovery, and they're forced themselves to talk through it. I'm here, I want to be here, and here's what's not good about that. All of a sudden, that tension starts to compel them to want to change and find a solution that fits best. And the most compelling thing, the self-motivation that I talked about earlier, is really examining why. Why change? Why is it important? Why is it absolutely necessary right now for you to bridge this gap, for you to make this change, for you not just stay where you are like so many people, so many businesses do? Why? What's driving you? What's compelling you is what I want to understand and help them to understand in their own way, that self-revelation. Because whenever they start talking about why, and on the surface, that first why, that's not the answer. Dig deeper. Yeah, but why is that important? And that one's not important. And then go deeper. Why is that one important? There's an activity called 7 Levels Deep. I learned from Dean Graziosi. And he says, until you get to the 7th level and you really push yourself to understand what's really going on, you're probably not going to change. And if you help them through that process, that epiphany goes off, and all of a sudden they're like, man, wow. And all of a sudden, because you've helped them to see that light, that trust level and that connection to you to help them solve their problem goes through the roof. So don't just take it on the surface, help them to dig deeper. And if you want to really understand how to do that without them putting their walls up or going, wait a minute, let's do it. Join me for that half-day workshop that we're doing. Again, it's only $47, full money back guarantee. Details should be down here. But you gotta get them to examine their why, because if it's not big enough, if there's not a big enough reason to change right now, if there's not enough pain, or if there's not enough big enough goal, there is no buying from the customer. There's no sale to be made. And then the next N is, what's their nemesis, or what's blocking it? What's keeping them? What's in the way of them going from here to here, or from here to here? What's that blocker? And so where we've come from is where are you? Where do you want to be? What's standing in your way? They may not know. You might have some industry insight, but if you can get them to self-discover what that is, talk through it, identify and go, wow, that's standing in the way and it really shouldn't. Is there a path forward? That's where they start to look to you for answers to a solution that they might not be able to achieve by themselves, or haven't found the path forward because that's been in the way and they haven't been able to move it. And ideally, your products and services can remove that block. Maybe they can remove it and they see a path forward like they've never seen before. And then C, this kind of digs deeper on examining the why, but if you have a strong enough why, what's your compelling reason for wanting to change now? Why now? And, it seems a little risky to ask that question, but at the end of the day, qualifying someone in is important, but qualifying somebody out, because if there's not a big enough reason to change right now, you'll be chasing them. They'll be resistant. You'll be fighting. It'll be confrontational. But if they can identify in that moment that compelling reason for this must happen, I'm tired of it. It's been enough. I can't stand my sound outside at my tiki bar. I must have better sound. I cannot have a full-blown party with my friends if my sound is terrible. Or whatever it is that's driving it. It has to change now. I'm done. They have to be done, or there's no sale to be made and there's no change that's going to happen. And finally, E, examine the path forward. Explain the path forward and invite. So this is where you can take all of the things that matter, where they are, where they want to be, what's standing in the way, the compelling reasons why, and ultimately what they're going to get, the outcome, the goal, the relief from the pain. Take that from an emotional level, analogical level, and tie it, map it to your solution or whatever your products and services can do for them. You see, if you go through the all these 8 steps, the 9th step makes the close. I always like to say, if you have to close, you don't know how to sell. If I've been patient, if I've had laid back posture, if I have eliminated that sales resistance and I've understood them fully and demonstrated that understanding in this last step, people buy when they feel understood, not when they understand you. And so if I've done a good job and I explain and map how the problem can be solved, they can see a path forward. And then the hardest close I ever have to do, if you have to close, you don't know how to sell, because they should be closing you at this point. And all I should have to do is ask them, so we've covered pretty much everything that we need. Was there anything else? What are you seeing here that could potentially help you get where you're looking for? And if they lean in and unpack that and double down, I simply have to say, well, here's what I recommend we do now. Or what would you like to do now? It doesn't have to be difficult. You don't have to coerce. You don't have to persuade. You don't have to pitch. You don't have to demo, at least not too soon. And you don't have to force, and you won't be chasing. Because when you've done this whole process correctly and thoroughly, that invite, here's what I recommend we do now. What do you suggest we do now? What would you like to do now? Is a simple invite that will compel them to take action now. So I hope this has served you. Feel free to share this with your sales team or other sales professionals or other sales leaders that you're connected to. But most importantly, if you found value in this, I'm going to go much deeper than this in a half-day virtual workshop. I normally charge $497 for it, $497 for it, but you sat through and now you have a foundation and a base, and I want to serve you. So the price is $47. Full money back guarantee. There's a button right below here that you can click to register and sign up. There's a couple of dates there, and all you have to do is reserve your spot for $47. And if for some reason you can't make it, you can reschedule, right? I require you to show up to that presentation to request your money back. And the reason I do that is because I block out that time, and I'm investing in you, and I want to know that you're committed. So if you don't show up, you don't get your money back. But if you do show up and you're not satisfied with it, you can bail at any time if you're not satisfied, and just send me a message and say, hey, give me my money back. And I will refund it unconditionally, no questions asked. But I want you there because if you're trying to achieve consistency in sales results and sales growth, this deeper dive will help you to get there. You can ask me your questions. I'll coach you in the moment if it's relevant. I'll share everything I have for you in here. And we'll talk about specifics, and I'll ask you about the challenges you're facing, and I'll start to unpack and show you how it all fits together in here. So I hope this has served. Stay tuned. I've got some other stuff coming your way. If we're not connected on LinkedIn yet, please look me up. I've got two profiles. One, I'm in a sport coat and a, pink shirt. And the other one, I have one of my businesses band leadership seminars. So I go across the country during the summer and work with high school and college band programs to teach leadership. That was my background. 9-time student leader, 6-time drum major. And so I go to give back, right? And so one of those profiles is set up for the band directors. So that's not me. Connect with the one that says Dwayne Huff. I'm a performance coach, sales trainer, performance coach. You'll see it. It's a more professional looking one. So connect with me on LinkedIn if you have not yet, and send me a line. Let me know what the biggest challenge is that you or your team are facing in sales, and I'll do my best to create some content to help you solve it. Have a great day. We'll talk soon. Bye-bye.